kin reinforcements for the Leagues of Votann. Welcome, gentle listener. I am Baldermort, your faithful servant, and I wish to introduce you to the forces, factions, and faces of the Warhammer 40k setting. The grim darkness of the far future, where there is no time for peace. There is only time for war. If you wish to see the channel flourish, then like and subscribe, but also consider joining our Patreon or throwing a one-off tip in the form of a super thanks if I have indeed earned your bounty. And today, on another War Gear Wednesday, we celebrate the reinforcements bequeathed to the wee buggers, the kin of the Leagues of Votann. New toys, new lore, new warriors to march unto the breaches. Now it is true that I like to quote from the newest lore, as I see little point in paraphrasing these entries when the ink is still wet. Just in case I overbake the cake, but also so you, the avid Warhammer fan, can hear the word from the horse's mouth. Plus, I have to admit, it is also an expedient. It permits me to work on the bigger banquets, I will not lie. But do think about it. Do you really believe I cannot paraphrase or synopsize these entries? Of course I can. But I adore reading the comments not about my presentation, but the reactions to the new lore as written. Because I do not consider myself a lore master. I am a guide, and I revel in these things, not as one above you, but amongst you. We are all one in this great hobby. I collect and collate details and present them to save you time and effort and no little expense. Because there is so much juicy lore, all those little tidbits which are inside the codices. Now, with that throat clearing over, let us bask in the newest lore concerning the kin, with a tiny introduction to make it easier on the ear and show, not just tell, how these new warriors act and can be used for the greater glory of the Votanns. From the Bold Library, Strategos. Aquapondi. The mining prospect had been struck by an immense orc assault. They came out of nowhere, smashing into the kin facility with all of the power of a tsunami. The kin had held them back as much as they could, but the orc ships were large and numerous. They had traded fire at point-blank range, overwhelming much of the defensive Votann fleet. Then they had dropped thousands of green-skinned warriors and weapons of war onto the huge meteoric kin endeavor. They had swept away the defenses on the surface. The lord of the kin, the Carl, had stood proudly on the highest peak of the mountainous landmass. The huge orc leader had engaged him in combat one-on-one, and slain Carl Kerriman. Not with ease, but he had done it. Now the command center was stoically attempting to see a way through this travesty. The Memnyr Strategists stood at his consoles, giving orders and realigning the kin forces as swiftly as he could. Pardon, the Arcanist Evaluator, marched to his side and steadily spoke. The Carl is dead. The orc filth run roughshod over our defenses. We must strike back. The warriors require vengeance. The domed strategist did not shift his position nor cease his computations or orders as he responded. They can have vengeance or victory. Which serves the Votann better? The Arcanist spat back. Both. We require both. Perhaps when victory is gained, vengeance will be satisfied? Perhaps. It all depends on the means of the matter. The sticking point? I'm not going to like your plan, am I? No, but it is the optimal route to our reward. Illuminate me. Lights in the command center shifted and flashed onto the Arcanist, who sighed and rolled his eyes as he glared at the strategist. Perhaps the wrong moment. We need to break them. Only then will they leave. We cannot hope to wipe them out wholesale. But if enough retreat, we can take them piecemeal. How? Responded the Arcanist. They thrive in combat. laugh at their own casualties. Even now, they seem to be fighting amongst themselves. Huge swathes of the army fires upon their own. The Carl's Gambit paid dividends, but not enough. But still, the Greenskin Vanguard crushes all before it. How do we break monsters born for war if we do not deploy our own? The Steeljacks will hear the call, but not yet. The Greenskin engages with what it can see, fight and kill. We starve them of enemies, while culling them ingloriously. How do we kill them if we cannot see them? Do not fight them. Oh, we shall see them. They just will never see us. The orcs attack along a narrow path. They believe they are hitting us on a wide front, but they are not. Their simplistic vision prevents them from truly fourth-dimensional thinking. They hurl themselves down the main concourse at the top of the meteor. Only some few have even begun to explore the interior, let alone the underbelly walkways and tunnels. So what? We have tactical advantage, maneuverability. We will move past the main thrust and hit them from the rear, melting away only to be chased, of course. Of course. And we will use Earthshakers to collapse shafts and gantries, sluice plasma and toxic fumes internally at choke points on the orc routes of progression. We've been doing much of this already. Not a moment, as I grant you. But what changes? We will never let them see kin forces after the goading forays. We tuck tail and run. Yes, but before they even set eyes on kin arses. Why? The orc wants war. If it cannot see its enemies, it gets frustrated, and we slaughter more of them with strikes in the center and underbelly. They will scatter inside. Then we hunt them when they are broken. The orc will see his brothers die. This will not concern them at first, perhaps even amuse them, but when they see it a score of times, they will go from frustrated to fearful. Of death? No, of dying without even getting to fight. The Steeljacks, where before we closed off regions and shot the enemy with Hearthkin. This takes too long. It permits the other enemies to hear them fighting, and has created opportunities for the orc to break through to overwhelm multiple locations. If we deploy the Steeljacks, they will make short work of even these heavily armored orcs in the vanguard, when we get to that area. By doing this, by preventing battle, their warlord will tire, lose interest, and return to his greater fleet. We'll render this void useless to us. This is likely. The prospect may fail entirely, but better to fail than fall. Especially to the greenskin filth. I see the merit in your scheme. It has worked before, 25.5 times. Half? Complicated. So, half. Do it. The Arcanist then turned and marched towards the door. Where are you going? To help. You've got this covered. It's good for one of us to be out there amongst the men. True. Happy retreating. Until a point, right? Indeed. When we have confused them enough, their momentum will stall. Then they will fracture. And then, when the orc warlord has left, we will mop them up with extreme prejudice. Yes. Yes, we will. To be continued in Legends of Cronan. The kin, the Leagues of Votann, have tasty new models and wonderful new lore to match, even a new hero to widen their HQ options. So, let's have at it. To quote, wrought for survival. When the shadows of the kin's avarice envelops a world, its fate is a foregone conclusion. The planet's every strength and weakness has been weighed. Its worth to the Leagues of Votann has been calculated, and the lives of its people have been dismissed as little more than irrelevancies. Skies darken as the immense void ships of the kin settle into orbit, bearing the kin host to war. Kin armored spearheads strike hard and true, Hecaton land fortresses smash through barricades and over obstructions as enemy fire rebounds from their hulls. Lighter vehicles race alongside them, swinging around the flanks or focusing heavy weapons on enemy strongpoints to strip away the outer defenses. As teleport signatures flare and hatches slam open, the kin host's infantry surge into the fight, and the storm of fire redoubles. Moving with unity of purpose, the kin assess and eliminate threats. Squads of Hearthkin advance relentlessly, hammering bolt rounds and plasma blasts into anyone foolish enough to bar their path. Cthonian berserkers, heavily armoured Hearthguard, and hulking Steeljacks storm in to finish their foes at close quarters. Soon enough, nothing remains but the prize that the kin came to claim. With it, and the experiences forged in its ruthless acquisition, do the kin honour the ancient and wise Votann. Buri Aegnirssen, thrice devoured Drake Slayer, last of the lost. A legendary survivor and ferocious warrior, it is said by many kindreds that Buri Aegnirssen has witnessed more death than any other kin. He has dedicated his long life to slaying the Tyranids, obsessed with settling a grudge so enormous that it has consumed much of his sanity. The tale of the Buri Aegnirssen block is known across kin space as one of unutterable tragedy. The League was engulfed by a tendril of Highfleet Leviathan. With no hope of escape, its few kindreds pulled back to defend the whole world under whose surface resided their Votann. One by one, the defenders fell. The growing numbers of the dead were hastily, desperately returned to their ancestors, but the Tyranids inevitably overwhelmed and consumed the last survivors. The ancestor core of the Buri Aegnirssen was left alone, suffused with the hopelessness and agony of those killed in its defense. It was driven insane. Other leagues mourned the fate of the block's Votann. Its tortured insanity corrupted the beacon of its mind, so Buri Aegnirssen space was deemed too hazardous to approach. There was no rescue of the mad core, as it became known, and no salvage from the League's worlds. There was one, however, who would seek vengeance for all that had been lost. No coherent account exists for what happened to Buri Aegnirssen before he fought alongside kindred Deep Seven of the Great Arthurian League. He arrived on an acid-ravaged scout ship as the kindred fought an evacuation in the face of a Tyranid splinter fleet at the Nord Reach, leading a group of warriors from varied kindreds, many severely wounded. Aegnirssen roared an unknown war song as he plunged into the Tyranid swarms. Survivors later described him as a manifestation of the Votann's will, who feverishly sought out the largest leader beast. It is said he threw himself from a promontory into the creature's maw before hacking his way out through its pulsating throat sacs in a gush of ichor. Seeing Aegnirsen's skill, ferocity, and almost supernatural resilience, Deep Seven's kinhost rallied towards him. Their evacuation fleet pounded the bioships in orbit, eventually driving them off, while Deep Seven and Buri slaughtered the remnant brood on the surface. Aegnirssen has been sighted across League territories and the frontiers of far space since. He is the last of the lost Buri Aegnirssen block, and though he speaks little of it, other kin believe he is attempting to balance the debt incurred when his league fell. He is a scarred and, at times, unhinged warrior who negotiates passage from one war zone to the next. The kin he encounters are wary of his presence, as his obsession is seen as destabilizing. Frenzied recklessness blooms in his wake, and those who fight alongside him declare grudges in worrying numbers. Buri is thus often mistrusted by most kindreds, forcing him to remain on the move and without a permanent home. In extremis, however, he is a powerful ally, and it is said his tales, in his moments of lucidity, are the equal of an expedition to far space. Memnyr Strategists. Walking supercogitators, The Ironkin, who take on the role of Memnyr Strategists, are respected officers of their kin host. They are exceptional battlefield tacticians and logistical coordinators whose intellects are used efficiently to serve their kindred. The position of Memnyr Strategist is amongst the highest rank that a kindred's Ironkin can hold. Only those who the Votann have created with exceptional cognitive abilities can serve as living calculators beyond compare. Memnyr Strategists often advise Carls and Einhir champions before battle, as well as the Votannic Council, upon which usually sits a chief strategist of the Memnyr. While other specialists amongst the Memnyr serve as chemical analysts, production schedulers, resource diviners, claim moderators, or one of many other vital roles, strategists hone their skills in martial logistics and expert tactics. When the threat of conflict looms, they analyze reports from their exploratory prospects and individual bands of Ironkin on the foe's positions. They rake through environmental and structural dispatches offered by the Cathonians and other guilds, assessing impacts on the kinhost and how the terrain can be exploited to undermine their enemies. Strategists scrutinize the enemy's transmissions, not just their communications, but also energistic discharges that enable them to gauge the location and vulnerabilities of power networks. A skilled strategist can amass almost as much insight into the foe's capabilities as possessed by the enemy's leaders. To exploit such knowledge, each Memnyr strategist memorizes details of every element of their kinhost, including material registers, engine outputs, mass estimates, ordnance tallies, psychological tendencies, and centuries of strategic insight against all manner of hostile creatures. Passing this wealth of knowledge, strategists feed their fellow commanders moment-by-moment tactical revelations and strategic redundancy options. This information sees kin forces respond with seemingly preternatural speed and decisiveness to developing enemy maneuvers. Strategists allow their allies to strike devastating blows against weak spots the foe didn't even realize they had, and lay traps to counter supposedly flawless ambushes. To aid their computations, Memnyr strategists wear cognitar mantles, which link a strategist to additional CUs specializing in various spheres of warfare and significantly expanding the wearer's processing capacity. To the kin, such tethering nodes are not people in the way that Ironkin are. To suggest an esteemed strategist communed with the disembodied minds of others would be a grave insult. Arcanist Evaluators. The crackle and blaze of exotic energies heralds the presence of the advanced and often experimental weaponry of the Arcanist Science Guild. Their evaluators eagerly grasp every chance to twist and transmute fundamental matter, including the very flesh of their foes. Arcanist Evaluators are daring agents of guilds specializing in esoteric and often highly hazardous sciences. The evaluators boldly test dangerous new technologies, avidly seeking data on their devices' effect in battle. They frequently accompany prospects to the frontiers of kin space, forces of the Cthonian guilds to sites of exotic matter, and kin hosts facing varied enemies. Evaluators seek new environments and materials to unleash the incredible potential of the powerful yet dangerous apparatus of the science guilds. This field testing of experimental weapons is patiently repeated to satisfy stringent kin standards before they can enter mass production. Amongst the devices they employ are transmatter inverters. In their most basic form, transmatter inverters defragment and realign molecular lattices. These weapons are seen in a dizzying array of patterns and sub-patterns. Arcanist evaluators constantly adapt these devices, making them look as unique and unconventional as their wielders. When fired, they convert matter into varied new forms. Some boil away an alien super soldier's flesh or separate its armored valued substances. Others trigger the extrusion of exotic crystals from a target's blood. Some can temporarily shift matter between phases, initiating atomic duplication cascades like runaway cosmic microreactions or violently altering atomic forces, resulting in targets erupting into mist or contracting into smears of protoplasm. The Arcanist science guilds operate at the cutting edge of kin technological advancement and are devoted to the most innovative of new spheres. The guilds interact closely with the mining guilds and the engineers. Their scientists harness the most alien raw materials unearthed by the Chthonians, refining their properties and application to enable the Brokia and their peers to use them more efficiently. The evaluators of these guilds are the foremost of this position. They are investigators and inventors, and, in the view of traditionalist kin especially, they are courageous almost to the point of recklessness. Cathonian Earthshakers. The guns and crews, known collectively as Cathonian Earthshakers, embody the terrifying ease with which the kin can turn their industrial might into military prowess in a moment. Part geomantic echolocator, part tectonic fracturer, and part battlefield artillery. The mole mortar employed by these specialist teams of Chthonian gunners is known and feared by countless species that have felt its wrath. This weapon can fire highly advanced subterranean payloads along expertly calibrated underground vectors. During resource harvesting, mole mortars drive sensitive auger probes deep into the bedrock to sniff out chemical and mineral traces. They can crack open promising seams of exotic strata, whether within planetary boundaries, forbidding space hogs, or gargantuan void kraken. A mole mortar's crew might stubbornly continue such harvesting in active war zones, where an enemy directly threatens their prize or their kindred. Cathonian Earthshakers inexorably turn their pitiless gunnery calculations upon them. Tremor shells are timed to detonate beneath their target. They can gouge out subterranean voids that result in deadly sinkholes and sudden chasms, sending warriors falling to their deaths and flaying survivors with repercussive jets of debris. Besides the direct devastation they can cause, their other tactical use is how they initiate concussive waves of resonance through terrain. Where a tremor shell's waves reach the surface in clashing and conflicting reverberations, they can easily throw enemy soldiers from their feet, twisting armor seals and snapping limbs, and leaving a disoriented foe easy prey for advancing kin. Focused towards their targets, these waves rupture into the atmosphere in a grumbling roar and can disrupt jet and turbine intakes as well as anti-grav technology. Similar to the munitions fired by mole grenade launchers carried by berserks, but on a grander scale, those known as breacher ordnance drill their way to the surface to explode amidst the enemy's ranks. With their hyperbore bits, these shells can chew through reinforced ferrocrete to explode in the confines of defensive trenches or highly valued command bunkers. They can bore into armored fuel cells and promethium tanks to trigger conflagrations or rupture geothermal wells and shielded capacitors so that, at a stroke, the Chthonians' enemies are without power, communications, or breathable air. They can also hunt down elusive targets using semi-autonomous or guided geomantic tracking. The dreaded approaching whine of a breacher ordnance shell, not knowing exactly where it will erupt, followed by its sudden surfacing and detonation in a flincing storm of shards, can break the resolve of the most stoic foe. Ironkin Steeljacks. Towering above the other warriors of the kin host, Ironkin Steeljacks are incredibly powerful fighters. They employ their Votann-wrought strength, immense resilience, and keen tactical precision in battles to defend kin holdings or eradicate the toughest foes. Ironkin Steeljacks emerged from the complex process of their creation as natural warriors. It is evident to all their kin that the Votann intended them to serve on the front lines of the most challenging claims and to defend the four pillars with every augmented fibre of their being. Compared to other Ironkin, Steeljacks boast greatly enlarged skeletal substructures of hardened exoteric alloys More complex fiber-weave musculature, reinforced servo redundancies, and enhanced adaptive logic centers. Understanding their innate talents, Steeljacks hone their martial skills in training, hollow pattern simulators, and, most of all, in battle. The galaxy is a hostile environment, and there are no shortage of threats to their kindred's prosperity. In battle, Steeljacks are ideally suited to several roles. The hulking fighters are devastating shock troops, their advanced systems enabling them to move as swiftly and agilely as any kin, even when fully clad in their oversized suits of void armor. Armed with broad plasma falchions or brutal concussive gauntlets, Steeljacks can smash their way through defensive lines, snapping off shots from autarch-pattern bolters held as easily as pistols. They can punch through bulkheads in swift and deadly boarding actions, or form a mailed interdiction gauntlet at the vanguard of a kin assault. In reclamation or defensive actions, Ironkin Steeljacks frequently form counter-offensive reserves or lead acquisition spearheads, supporting static elements of the kin host with deadly assaults. Though Steeljacks loom over the kin of their families, there is no unease in their presence. They are the object of proud affection, looked up to by others as their kindred's most naturally talented soldiers. Whilst those Steeljacks who rise to squad leadership positions as Thanes typically spend their entire lives immersed in battle or preparing for it, other Steeljacks are occasionally seen putting their immense frames and strength to work in industrial or civilian roles when not training with the rest of the kin host, integrating as much into society as any Ironkin. It is only lamented that they are not greater in number. The initiation of a Steeljack's creation is entirely in the gift of the Votann, and subject to those great minds' arcane ratios and formula. When a forge begins to spontaneously construct masterwork weapons and armor far too large for any average kin to wield, there is great and quiet joy throughout the hold, for it is a sign that a new Steeljack will soon join a kindred. The Iron Carl. Legends of an Iron Carl have existed for millennia. The figure has worn varied guises, often that of a humble Ironkin raised to greatness by the Votann, and driven to command entire armies with nigh supernatural strategic capabilities. In recent centuries, this figure has become more prevalent, with tales of an individual matching the legend, bearing an uncanny ring of truth. It is known for rare Memnyr to flood their minds with such massive data flows that they can briefly achieve the feats ascribed to the tale's hero. However, doing so drastically reduces their lifespan, senescence swiftly stealing upon them. Most kin thus dismiss the cohering rumours as accretions of several individuals' deeds. End quote. At last, we see the expansion of this vibrant new army, and I cannot wait for more. Why? Well, because my son is building up a small force, and I look forward to fighting them. Oh yes, I do. I have been Baldermort, your faithful servant. If you have enjoyed this wee biscuit of lore, then do consider liking and subscribing. If you are a regular gentle listener, then consider hitting the links in the description for pins, channels, and other deals. Now, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo.